Good morning. Chris Lee of Southeastern 16, joined here by my partners, Graham Doty, Alfred, Ezman. We are set to do power rankings as we enter the third week of SEC baseball. I'm going to kind of recap every team's weekend as well, do a 2-for-1. We may start splitting these up, doing a series recap perhaps on Sunday night, and then power rankings on Monday. Hadn't quite decided on that, so we're getting into the swing of things here. Gentlemen, lots of SEC baseball. We had some, I think, significant results this weekend. You know, for the most part, it was teams taking on overmatched opponents, but we had some things of significance with Oklahoma and Alabama. We'll unpack those. Let's just get right into it. Let's start at the bottom. Our number 16 team this week, the Missouri Tigers. I think of all our decisions, that was the easiest. Just a tough week for them, losing to Alabama State, UCF, getting wins over, I think, a couple of SWAC teams in between. The bullpen kind of failed. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see any in Missouri. I did not, but we were hoping for a 3-1 or 4-0. Didn't get that. So that was one of the few disappointing things that came out of the weekend.
Yeah, I'll say this, though. Good last game of the weekend for them against Southern. They really impressed that game. So I'll go the route of talking good about Missouri, because they're at the bottom, and I'll talk about that game. The one guy who came off the bench, Picarelli, very good game for him. He had a 2-run homer, a big double as well to get some runs in the score. Southern had no answer, and Missouri went ham, on that pitching staff, and quite frankly just built up a huge lead, and there was nothing that their opponent could do about it. So, yeah, I mean, they had that rough Alabama State game on Saturday. That was an eyesore, to say the least, for them, everybody in general. But a nice bounce back. So hopefully that bounce back win they have against Southern pushes them in the right direction. That's what I'll be watching out for them next week.
Yeah, I feel like one of the last times we recorded, we all wanted to see what they would do against UCF, and it did not go their way in their midweek. And then I'll give them this. To lose the way they did the second game and then to bounce back and win as big as they did yesterday, like, you have to give them credit for that they – it would have been easy to wave the white flag after just a tough week and being on the road for so long. So give them credit for going 2-1 in the tournament.
All right, moving on. Next up, South Carolina. Boy, this kind of sums up the league. Gamecocks are 8-0 and 15 in our power rankings. The offense hasn't been super impressive. Alfred, I'll let you handle this one because I know you had some eyes on the Gamecocks this weekend.
Yeah, well, the thing that sticks out to me about them, the Sunday game really kind of put icing on the cake, because I think the thing with this team leading up until that game that ended in 8 innings was they were winning their games and they were taking care of business, but it was, 5-3, 5-2, 4-1. It wasn't really like this big convincing fashion that some of these other teams were doing against these mid-majors. On Sunday, They did that. On Sunday, they won in convincing fashion. And it was a pretty good group effort. I mean, you look down the list, Ethan Petrie had 2 hits. By the way, called the home run on our Friday recap or whatever. He hit the home run on Saturday. Just wanted to mention that. But nonetheless, a good 2-hit game from him on Sunday. Nolan Naraki, big 2-hit game. He launched a baseball over the fences in that game. And yeah, that really stuck out to me, that 14-4 win. Kind of fun. It's for South Carolina. That's huge to get that done that way, especially after winning these games really close throughout it. So big win for Paul Maneri. It's kind of a shame we have to slot him in at 15, but that's just with how the rest of the league is. It's kind of where they have to end up.
Yeah, we've got we'll move on to 14 here in a second, but we've got one team in the league that's lost more than one game. That's Missouri, which is 3-4. You got 5 unbeatens. Everybody else is a one-loss team, and that makes it very, very hard to separate. And personally, I don't do a lot of movement early in the season. I do a lot of research on teams off season, unless what I'm seeing first 2 weekends is a big departure from what I thought you were going to be. I don't tend to move teams around a lot. So Carolina kind of started at the bottom. And that's probably where they're going to be for a little bit until we start to see some separating in schedules. Okay, next up, Kentucky. Played in my neck of the woods, played Belmont, got a 3-game sweep. Nick McKay continues to be very impressive. Don't think he's given up a run yet. He's the high school class of 2018 graduate who anchors the Cats rotation. Kentucky also had a big weekend out of a newcomer. It was the Milwaukee transfer, whose name escapes me at the moment. But either of you guys get eyes on the Cats this weekend?
I did on Saturday. So I caught their Saturday 12-0 win. Home runs in that game from Tyler Bell and Devin Burks. Anytime you're Kentucky, you get your returner Devin Burks hitting well. That's only going to help you, especially after last season. That'll help you a ton. So that was huge for them. Other guys that did good. Those two were really the main people on offense in that game. Patrick Herrera contributed a good bit. You had Montoya contribute as well. Pitching wise, Ben Cleaver went 11 innings, he struck out 11 batters, went 6 innings. Very good start from him. That game looked pretty impressive. And I didn't catch Sunday's game, but they came back, right, and won that game.
Yeah.
Was that the whole mantra of that? Yeah. So you took care of business if you're Kentucky, but kind of like South Carolina, you're just, you kind of have to get slotted in the bottom of our rankings, unfortunately, just because of how good the league is.
Yeah, Carson Hansen was the guy I was thinking of. Milwaukee transfer, hit a couple of big home runs this weekend. Graham, you got anything on the Cats, or are we ready to move on to 13?
Just big picture takeaway. It was good to see them get all 3 games in. I mean, we kind of been touching on how it just kind of feels like they've been incomplete. They only played 2 games prior to this weekend. So just good to see them get a full game in and just want to see a little bit more as the season goes on from Kentucky.
Number 13, we'll go with you on this one, Graham, since it's the Magnolia State, Mississippi State. Had a pretty, for the most part, competitive, close series against Missouri State, which is not a bad team. Thought State was going to maybe throw a no-hitter. I think it was Sunday. And then Missouri State had a late rally. What do we take away from what we saw with the Bulldogs this weekend?
Everybody's kind of wondering what's going on offensively with Mississippi State. Remember, they had the midweek where they got shut out at Southern Miss, and then game 1 against Missouri State, they didn't do a lot offensively until the 8th inning. So they had some of their newcomers just step up to make plays when needed. Noah Sullivan, one of those. He leads State with 8 hits this season. You touch on the pitching. Their pitching, especially their top 2 arms, have been really, really good so far to start the season with Carson and Pico. And one of the better stories that I guess is kind of going under the radar is just Stone Simmons. Again, transferred to State, just hasn't really played a lot since arriving in Starkville, mainly due to injuries. And he's in the rotation this season. And, so far, so good as that Sunday starter. So offensively, I'm sure State fans want to see more hits and more runs up on the board. But, hey, you take care of business and you sweep a solid Missouri State team out of the Missouri Valley Conference.
Yeah, I think a little bit more diversity in the power department. They had 3 or 4 guys hit home runs yesterday, so that's probably a good sign. You're going to need that power up and down the lineup. I think Hunter Hines is their preeminent returning power hitter, but brought in some transfers, Sullivan being one of the guys that you mentioned. So that was kind of a thing that caught my eye. The offense has struggled a little bit in spots early, but I think seeing home run power from different guys yesterday, one of the encouraging things coming out of Sunday and the weekend for Mississippi State. All right, staying in the Magnolia State, number 12, Ole Miss. Hunter Elliott was really good again, I think through, 5 or 6 shutout innings. Going to throw it back to you again, Graham. What did you take away from the Rebels weekend?
2 things. Number 1, Ole Miss took care of business, and number 2, Eastern Kentucky is really bad, really, really bad out of the A-Sun. But mainly for Ole Miss, some of the newcomers and mainly kind of the freshmen that fans are really high on and want to see more of is Hayden Federico. So his dad is the head coach of ULM. He's from Monroe. His family, they got ties to the Magnolia State, so he's a true freshman. Didn't really start this season, but he's been playing at a high level. And I think he's going to be one of these guys that you're going to see just find a way in the lineup pretty consistently. So far this season, he's hitting .615. He's 8 for 13 at the plate. So what will that look like moving forward, especially once, people start to make an adjustment to him? Luke Hill continues just to smash offensively at the plate. He leads Ole Miss. He's got 12 hits, 9 RBIs already as well. You touched on Hunter Elliott. Hunter Elliott, kind of the story on the mound for Ole Miss, and then other starters have been well as well. Riley Maddox, 11 strikeouts this season, and his 8 1/3. Mason Nichols, a solid outing on Sunday, and kind of another newcomer. Walker Hooks has been really, really good in relief. I don't know how you guys are, but I look at appearances for bullpen guys as opposed to innings pitched, because when you look at the appearance numbers, I mean, that kind of gives you an idea of who the coaches trust. And so far, Hooks has the most appearances for Ole Miss out of the bullpen. And in his outings, he struck out 8 and hasn't walked anybody and hasn't given up a run. So he's kind of been one of the big arms out of the bullpen early for Ole Miss. And it's just kind of a story of the transfers, and the freshmen are really off to a good start this season for Ole Miss.
Mitchell Sanford, his bat woke up a little bit. That's one thing I talked about after Arlington. He's part of that group of transfers in the outfield. He was kind of like the odd one out with his bat not being explosive yet. Pretty good weekend for him. He had, 5 hits for him, and it's a good sign. So hopefully that continues with him going forward, and they get everyone in that outfield hitting.
All right, number 11, Auburn. I said last week, Auburn didn't have the best week, but with the Cade Ballou situation and just how devastating that can be, I kind of gave them a pass for first weekend. Glad I did, guys, because Auburn came out and went 5-0 on the week. That included beating a ranked Troy team on Tuesday. Sweep of Wright State by scores of 11-0, 11-1, and 9-4. I think the big thing that stood out to me was the shutout in game 1, and then 11 runs, or 1 run in game 2 allowed. I know Samuel Dutton, the LSU transfer, was really good, went 5 2/3. I'm guessing that was his career long outing or close to it. Christian Chatterton started on Sunday through 4 1/3 good innings. I don't know which one of you want to take Auburn. If either of you got eyes on them this weekend, but the hitting, Bub Terrell, I think had a pretty decent offensive week too. Their star outfielder, the Butch Thompson, told us had struggled a little bit in fall ball, but is coming on. I thought a really good week for Auburn, guys.
Yeah, I mean, usually we talked about Wright State having this, we, like you say, Chris, we don't know how they are this year specifically, but usually Wright State puts good teams together and is a challenge to some people. Weren't really a challenge to Auburn. Auburn really put together a nice weekend. I caught them on Saturday for the 11-1 game. Derek Fabian is one guy who sticks out. I know we're all Ike Irish with this team, but Derek Fabian is a menace on offense for Auburn. I really like what he's about. I mean, he singled to get runs in. He homered. He walked, with the bases loaded to get a run in. He did it all. I mean, he scores in a multitude of ways. He really sticks out to me on this team. Ike Irish, again, I know I'm kind of passing him up, but that's because we talk about him all the time. Great game for him again, 3 for 4 on Saturday. So, I mean, Auburn needed this kind of week on offense. So good stuff. Good stuff from the Tigers and Butch Thompson.
Yeah, they look good. Double-digit hits in every game, and you touch on the start for Fabian. Big thing for him, he's finally just healthy. I mean, he broke his jaw. Anytime you break a jaw and coming back from that, I mean, I can't imagine what that journey and process is like. So, obviously, super athletic family. His brother could hit the ball a mile for sure. So, if he's healthy in this lineup, him and Ike Irish, that's a nice combination there for Auburn, along with Cooper McMurray, who's just steady and just keeps going at it. And you look up and it's like, oh, Cooper had 2 hits again in another game. He's one of those guys.
All right. Welcome to the Tennessee, Oklahoma, and Arkansas fans in the chat here. Welcome, Sam Smith. Auburn. Yeah. Chris Say and Irish starting weren't for Auburn. We knew that would happen. I think the big thing with them was how's the middle of their order hit, and I think it was an encouraging weekend in that regard. All right, let's move on to number 10. And, boy, this team had a good week. Maybe not the best, because there's another team we're going to talk about in a minute, but a really good week. And certainly probably the game of the year, Alabama. If you didn't catch it, trailed Ohio State. Was it 10-0 in the middle innings? Came back, scored 12 unanswered. Will Hodo, I believe, had the walk-off home run. I believe Justin Lebron had 2.
Yeah.
Alfred, I think you said you had eyes on the Tide a lot of the weekend. What did you take away?
That they had, I think they're my team of the weekend. I know we're going to get into another team that very well could be a lot of other people's teams of the weekend. They're very well deserving of it. But this team really just shocked me with that 10-0 win. You figured, Ohio State came off a win against NC State. They came out hot the next game. Alabama was just going to fold over, back down. Rob Vaughn's team didn't do that. Justin LeBron, guys, 2 3-run homers in that game, like separate two separate 3-run homers. Just impressive stuff from him. Another guy, Richie Bonamalo Jr. was really good all weekend. He constantly was in on scoring plays. Zane Adams, that first start against Coastal Carolina, career high in strikeouts, tied a career high in strikeouts. So you got a really good start out of him. This team was clicking. And then, they played NC State. I guess NC State might be struggling at this point, some would say, but they shut out NC State 4-0. NC State was in Omaha, a season ago. And so that team really just Alabama just kind of just excelled in a lot of aspects. So great stuff from them. Someone's saying the Alabama disrespect is real. We had them 13 last week. So I think they're the
maybe.
Biggest, yeah, they're the biggest mover I think we have out of anybody. So just you wait and see, Austin, because you guys actually moved up the most out of anybody. And trust me, I wish we could have put them further, but I think this is pretty appropriate for now. And I mean, they shocked me this weekend.
Guys, everybody in the league except for one team is either unbeaten or got one loss. So if you're going to come to discussion, whether my team is 8-0 or 7-1, well, guess what?
Everybody.
So are 14 of the other 15 teams in the league.
March Madness,
it's crazy. Yeah,
right.
I mean, here's a stat for you. If my counting, Alabama has pitched 21 different guys so far.
Yeah,
21.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I know I keep saying it, but when we talk with Rob Vaughn, you could tell they're just trying to find somebody. And yesterday, by the way, we need to give a shout out to Tate Robertson. He's a senior, but he didn't play at all a season ago. So what does he do? He goes 3 innings in relief yesterday, didn't allow a run, struck out 4, and he was a big part of the reason why Alabama was able to come from behind. And that was the largest come from behind win in program history, by the way, for Alabama.
Yeah. Aiden Mazza, 6 strikeouts before that. That's another guy.
Yeah. I was going to say, till yesterday, they'd won all their games by at least 4. And I think that what I was watching is the JUCO outfield. Bonamalo really had some big numbers last year at the JUCO level. He's hit pretty well. Not a lot of power from him, but he's getting on base, which a lot of their guys are. They've walked 70 times in 8 games. And hit 13 home runs. Like, what are we watching here? 2022 Texas A&M. That's what it feels like.
Also, did you see the picture from the locker room? And
that wasn't real, was it?
That's real. Oh, Riley,
was it?
Riley Quick just issued a statement to media apologizing.
Yeah, we won't put that on the screen. But anyway, it was a lot of weird.
Telling everybody that they're number one.
Number one.
Let's say
right. I was a little surprised to see that, to be honest. Okay, moving up. Speaking of hot teams, gentlemen. Oh, we're not. That's right. We flipped this one. Vanderbilt goes 5-0 on the week and dropped a spot. That's the territory we're living in. Saw them. The lineup is really coming together for them. Brody Johnson, their third baseman, who's gonna push hard for freshman of the year in the league. Didn't give them much, but he's back in the lineup. Mike Mancini, the JMU transfer, is back. So they're starting to break those guys in a little bit too. I'm a little worried about their pitching, guys. I watched that staff. It's not the Vanderbilt staffs of the past.
Is
Chris
that
McElvain.
is that the first time you've ever said that sentence? You're worried about pitching?
Yeah, well, it might be. And I'll tell you the big thing: Chris McElvain can't. Chris McElvain, that's his brother. Ethan McElvain can't throw strikes right now, and they were counting on him to be one of their two biggest arms. Now, I'll tell you that Cody Boker is really good. That kid knows how to pitch, and so does J.D. Thompson out of the 1 and 3 holes. But the lineup, I think, is probably going to be better than people were expecting. The pitching is my concern with them. They're throwing a lot of guys like a lot of teams, but hey. You Vandy, you ace the week, you drop a spot. That's life in the SEC.
Mac Rose, kind of impressed with him, Chris. I don't know if you were impressed with him, but 5 for 12 in his first 12 at bats? Yeah. So pretty good start for that kid. Was, besides Brody Johnston, another big name that was coming in. Liked what I've seen from him.
Yeah, they started 2 JUCO kids in the lineup part of the weekend. That's probably the first time Tim Corbin has ever done that. They rarely start 1, but that's 2. All right, moving up to number 8. And boy, we're probably going to hear disrespect for this. I don't know what to do with them yet. I mean, and you got to look at who's in front of them too. Oklahoma. Where do we have Oklahoma to start the year? 12, 13-ish.
Right around 10 or 9, I think.
10 or 9. I think we gave the edge to their pitching. I mean, Oklahoma might have had the best week of anybody in the country.
Yeah.
This last week. Alfred, you watched him a little bit, didn't you?
I did. I watched Kyson Witherspoon start, because who doesn't want to do that? And that was the Minnesota game. He was pretty good again. Go figure, 7 innings, 12 strikeouts. 3 hits, just 1 earned run. He shut that team down, and the lineup didn't have to do too much because their high draft prospect pitcher just went crazy, and that was the case in that game. You had pretty good hits all across the board. Jackson Willits with a hit, Sam Christensen with a hit as well. Kyle Branch, who was pretty good this whole weekend, had a hit in that game. That's probably, besides that Minnesota game, the other takeaway I had was Kyle Branch was just a electric factory all weekend. I saw a big viral highlight play he made in the field. He had some scoring plays that he was in on, and I didn't catch as much of Oregon State and Virginia, but anytime you win those games over top 10 teams like that, we should probably move them up higher. But again, the rest of the league is just that much more potent. So we'll see. They're a team that easily can keep rising. And it's going to force our hand if this continues at this rate. But best weekend in the country out of any of the teams in the country by far. Super impressed. Saw the tail end of the Virginia game when they won it on that little throwing error or whatever happened at the end in extra innings. Just the cherry on top. Shout out to the Sooners. Shout out Skip Johnson. Great, absolutely great weekend.
Yeah, monster weekend. I feel like they can just win in a variety of ways, which is obviously a recipe for success. Like, they steal a lot of bases. I think they got the second most stolen bases, only behind Florida. They just smack a lot of doubles. I don't know. They just have a lot of really good pieces, whether it be Carmichael offensively and then some of their newcomers, but then their arms. Again, we knew the Witherspoon twins would be really good, and then they got other guys stepping up as well. So without a doubt, the most impressive weekend of anybody in the conference. And I know who is it? Stevie wants the Sooners higher. So I'm if they keep playing like this, obviously they'll continue to climb. But they had the best weekend of anybody in the league for sure.
Well, I mean, here's the problem with that. You've got of the 7 teams in front of them, 5 or 6 of them got picked by a lot of people to go to Omaha. So how much do we override that with one really great weekend of baseball? I don't think you do that after one weekend. But look, if they keep doing this, they're gonna be wherever they deserve to be.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're joining us late, you've got one of the 16 teams in the league has lost more than one game. You got 5 unbeatens. So it's like, how are we going to compare through 2 weeks when you got guys sitting out for this and that, when you got teams playing, teams they can overwhelm? It's just the way that I do it, I do not react a whole lot and start moving teams way up or way down unless it's a lot different than what I thought we were going to get preseason. But at the same time, you've also had got to give your Alabamas and your Oklahomas props for beating good schedules, and that's why both those teams moved up. But there's only a limit right now because the teams at the top of this list are all national title contenders. And look, maybe Oklahoma ends up there too. We'll wait and see. Okay, we've got next coming up at number 7, Texas. I could debate moving Texas down a spot or two. Good weekend last weekend. Didn't look so hot this weekend against Dartmouth. Maybe that was just playing down to your level of opposition. Either of you get to watch the Longhorns. I think, Alfred, did you say you watched them this weekend?
On and off. Yeah, I'll do my best with what I got. Adrian Rodriguez still impressed me this weekend. He was one of the very little bats that kind of popped off. To me, offensively, it was kind of just like you picked and choose who was doing good that weekend, as opposed to Arlington when it was more spread out. So Saturday, it was Rodriguez and Ballou. Go figure. Those two are probably going to do that a lot this year. Yesterday, it was really just kind of Rodriguez who did it in the 4-1 win on Sunday. I guess you had Max Ballou, who got a big RBI hit in. Ethan Mendoza had a couple RBI. Yeah, actually, Ethan Mendoza was the other one yesterday that did really good. So, yeah, maybe Sooners fans, shield your eyes at this set of rankings right here. But my thing is, like, look, Texas did take care of business in the end. Paul Maneri put it. I'll take his quote. He put it best in one of the post-game press conferences against Milwaukee. Look, it's hard to win in college baseball. Anytime you get it done, point blank, period. So that's what Texas did. Pitching wise, just kind of business as usual. I guess Luke Harrison kind of struggled a little bit, which was kind of weird to see, especially after his Arlington start, which I thought was the best and, one of the best we've seen so far around the league. Cade Bing went a little deeper than what he did in Arlington. That's something to look at. Dylan Volantis, keep an eye on him. He's probably going to be a pretty good bullpen guy for them going forward. So that was the take. That's the main takeaway I had pitching was Volantis on Sunday. But yeah, if you're Texas, like, look, these games weren't eye-popping like the Arlington games, but you're playing Dartmouth at home in Austin. It's a little bit different. And in the end, you took care of business. So you could sneeze at it, but don't sneeze at it too much. Jim Schlossnagle and the crew are still rolling with wins they're putting together.
Yeah, a win is a win, and you'll take it, especially a sweep. But I will say this, the lineup right now, I mean, it's pretty top-heavy. I mean, you got your two guys, Ballou and Rodriguez. They kind of separated from everybody else in the lineup. So for Texas to get where they want to go, they're going to have more guys in that lineup step up and be more consistent. Arms, too. Like, they're still trying to figure out, looks like their bullpen and arms. Like, Grayson Saunier did not pitch at all over the weekend. So I don't know. It just seems like they're trying to figure out what they have to work with. They brought in a ton of new faces pitching wise. And, sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to figure out what you got and who you want to use in certain spots. Is it matchup wise, or is it, okay, we're going to go out here and give this guy 2 to 3 innings, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, they're going to get hitting because Jalen Flores is going to hit. Will Gasparino, I think, is going to hit based on the way Schlossnagle talked about his offseason and the talent that was present before he got to Austin. I think the big question to me is bullpen depth and starting depth. I'm just not sure exactly what that's going to look like. They've struggled at times. Bullpen was better this weekend, but they were also playing, Dartmouth. So, I don't know if that's the best litmus test.
Yeah.
So
that is a part of it too. Like a lot of teams, you will play to the level of your competitions. When it's outside, you're not going to give 150% at all times. If they're human, they're college students. It happens.
Yeah, another reason we don't overreact to early weekends is one-offs. But anyway, number 6, Georgia. Hey, guess what? Anthony Dasher told us. Forget what the numbers you saw on the scoreboard last weekend. Wind was blowing in Wilmington last week. A lot of balls that would have left the yard did not leave the yard. So guess what? Georgia goes back to doing what it does. It gets a 4-game sweep of Illinois-Chicago by scores of 9-3, 15-1, 10-4, and 17-3. That on the heels of that wild Kennesaw State game in midweek.
Mm-hmm.
Who had eyes on the Dogs this weekend?
I caught the very fun last game, the 17-3 game, the travel curfew. We have to end the game baseball game was the one I caught. Yeah, so I caught that one, which was pretty nice to see. Zaborowski, welcome to the SEC. Welcome to college baseball. He had a nice weekend. I saw him hit a moonshot in one of the earlier games. He had another nice game in that last one that I'm speaking on. Slade Alford, got in on scoring action. Go figure. Burnett, he's had a great start to the year. Really, it's been because of his stolen bases. He homered. Trey Phelps homered. You had someone else homered. Henry Hunter came in and homered as well. Talk about spread out hitting. That Georgia had it, and they deservedly have a spot in our rankings way up here. Hitting was off the charts. I don't know if we had UIC as a mid-major to watch out for. That gives people fits or anything. No. All right, Graham's shaking his head no. So I will not mention
year.
That anymore. Yeah, not this year.
But they have been before. I mean, that's
okay.
Curtis Granderson played there. They've been on a lot of regionals over the years.
Right. But Georgia did make him look silly if that was the case. So
yeah.
Good weekend for the Dogs. Just all out. I caught that really fun game toward the end. I mean, they had 10 runs in the sixth, and it was just kind of like, all right, well, series over. We'll move on to our next set of games. And not a whole lot to say. Just hitting all over the place. And if that continues, Georgia's going to win a bunch.
Yeah, I watched because I wanted to see what the new renovations look like. They look good, by the way. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but I know, Chris, you said this was one of your favorite ballparks.
Just love it.
Like it is a gorgeous setup. So I thought the renovations looked great. Again, essentially almost every stadium in this league is fantastic, way better than what you see in minor league baseball. Take it from somebody who's been on a lot of those bus rides to different ballparks. Want to touch on Robbie Burnett. He's playing at an all-conference level. 3 home runs already. He's got 8 stolen bases as well. I mean, if he does this pretty consistently all season long, I mean, Georgia will definitely be in the mix. Didn't want to touch on the Ole Miss transfer, JT Quinn. He got his first start, and it did not go well. So how will he bounce back moving forward? Again, Wes Johnson is known for working with pitchers and everything that he's done over the years. So be curious to see what JT Quinn looks like bouncing back, and then just some of those other arms. And I feel like we keep touching on their arms, but they got a lot of good ones rotation-wise and bullpen-wise, and Alabama transfer looked really, really good as well on the mound this weekend for Georgia.
Georgia has thrown 20 guys so far. Talked about Alabama's thrown 21. Those are both teams that I think we would have circled. They've got a lot of guys who've thrown pitches at the collegiate level before. No surprise at all that Georgia, especially when you're having to cover for Charlie Goldstein, who is more of an opener than a starter at this point, you're going to pick up some more innings out of the bullpen. But absolutely unsurprising. If you looked at this team on paper before the season, you knew they were going to throw a lot of arms. All right, speaking of arms, one of the few bad things to come out of the weekend, Gage Wood left the game on Sunday in his start. I think there was some shoulder discomfort. Boy, you never like to hear that. It was a kid that we thought might close for them, started the weekend in the rotation. Now, Dave Van Horn did say, we tell our guys, when you're feeling anything at all, let's get you out of the game. So it may be a case of nothing. I don't know. I mean, look, worst case scenario, Arkansas loses Gage Wood. You still got Gabe Gackle, Zach Root, Landell Beetleshees. I always get that name wrong, the Ohio State kid. Christian Fouch, Will McIntyre, Cole Gibbler, Parker Coyle, Ben Bybee, Colin Fisher, Carson Wiggins, Aiden Jimenez, Dylan Carter. I mean, we can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
And we can talk about number of arms. Arkansas's got more arms who had pitched well, probably between summer ball and college, other than maybe LSU. So, I mean, you don't ever want to lose Gage Wood, but there's certainly a path forward for the pitching. Now, I guess one of the issues right now, the hitting has just been uneven again. Some of that's been cold, some of that's been schedule. They get 2 runs in a loss to Kansas State on Friday. They get 2 runs in a win over TCU, and they beat Michigan 8-6 after 4 games against Washington State. Who had eyes on the Hogs this weekend?
I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and say this: kind of an entertaining weekend on social media amongst Arkansas baseball people. First game happens, you lose it, season's over, no more Arkansas baseball ever again. What are we gonna do? This is a nightmare. Second game comes. I watched Dave Van Horn's after huddle talk that they always like post. And I like that they do that, and he's just kind of like, look, everything we did wrong yesterday, we fixed today. And it's the same score, but it's the opposite end. So you guys are on the right path. Michigan game was really impressive. The final game of the weekend, that was the one I caught the most of. It started out Charles Davalon, who they've gone to pretty much every day, right, guys? I mean, he's pretty much been a fixture in the lineup every day. And he had a really good game against Michigan. Wehiva Aloy, go figure. He also had a pretty good game. 4 for 4 day for him. 2 RBIs. And then you just you keep going down the list. Brent Iredale got a hit in with an RBI. Cam Kazio got one in. He took like a shot from, I don't know if you guys saw this, from a base runner and still held onto the ball or something going to first. It was a pretty good play. So shout out to him. And the other Aloy brother, I think we're going to see him in on the lineup in the near future because he basically won that second game for them. So yeah, I think Arkansas, it started out kind of deep in the hole, but then you climbed yourself out and you're back out of the hole and you're sitting pretty. So, the weekend didn't start great, but you finished it pretty great. So Arkansas fans, you guys are good. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I totally agree with Alfred. Arkansas is a lot like the Mississippi schools football mentality with a baseball program. Like you're gonna drop a game here or there. It's gonna be fine. Like you're still gonna be heavily in the mix. I will say good news. I did watch Dave Van Horn after the game talking to the media. He did say that for Gage Wood, MRI today, but I mean, he told the media, obviously he doesn't have an answer yet, but the doctors feel good about it. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be season ending. That was him after the game yesterday. I know Arkansas fans, it's got to feel like, they've lost an arm, every season the last 5 years or whatever. But good bounce back performance. Again, game 1 didn't go their way, but this is what they do. They just consistently stay at it, and they finish the weekend strong. One thing that caught my attention, 6-1 start. That's their best start to a season since 2021. So good stuff for the Hogs.
Everybody makes Arkansas jokes because of the offense, and I get it. They've scored 46 runs through 7 games. They've also given up 18, which is pretty loud. The Aloy brothers have got massive power, both of them. We love Brett Iredale. I think they'll figure it out at second between Kozel or Souza or whoever. I mean, both of them could be in the lineup. Kendall Diggs, let's not forget. Diggs was hurt a lot of last year. I think healthier is going to be a much better player. Maybe not right away, but I think in time. Ryder Helfrich, 12 home runs in the Cape? That's so hard to do. Very highly talented kid. Look, I think you could almost rank Arkansas higher. And probably if you're considering results right now, I could see why you wouldn't. But I'm nowhere close to being out on them. I know people make their jokes and consider them maybe a notch below some of the other teams that we're talking about. I'm not sure I do. Right. Is the offense maybe what some of the teams are in front of them? Maybe not.
No,
not yet. We'll see if they get there. But would you put anybody's pitching in front of them? I would not either. And I think we tend to underrate pitching a little bit. It's an offensive era. But let's move on to number 5. We'll go this week with the Florida Gators, who have looked really good so far. I think the surprise has been the pitching. The starting pitching has been fantastic. I mean, I say surprise. We knew that Coppola and Clemente and Peterson are all elite arms. It's can they stay healthy? Can they take the next jump? Then the pitching depth might be a concern with them compared to the rest of the teams. But right now, for their starters, are covering a lot of innings on the weekends, maybe as much as anybody's. And, oh, by the way, Brody Donay and those guys are hitting too.
Yeah, they are. The Gators all shortened game wins. I know it was so none of the games they played went 9 innings. They took care of business early and got everything done. They made a change too. I don't know if you guys saw to their starting rotation. They're putting Kopala on Saturday.
Okay.
So I think we're trying to split righties up is kind of the mantra of what they're doing. And I like that. That's a pretty, and it's Kevin O'Sullivan. He tends to know what he's doing. So I won't speak out against it. But yeah, super impressed with what they did. Again, continuing just to hit the ball with aggression. I mean, I'm looking at all the guys who have had the most at bats. So it's been 20, all the guys they have who have made 20 plus at bats. So the guys they've been playing, batting over 300. That's Cade Curlin, Brendan Lawson, Bobby Boser, Blake Sear, Hayden Yost, Colby Shelton, and Brody Dene, all batting above 300 right now. You can't pitch against these guys. They're gonna hit you. And I know they haven't really played anybody yet. That's gonna change in the near future. Yeah, it's gonna get tested, but they don't deserve anything less of where we put them right now. I don't think anyone really is going to argue that. So great weekend for the Gators. Dominant wins over Dayton across the board. The pitching's been great. I know they haven't gone to a lot of people because their starters have gone deep, but this hitting, I mean, it could beat anybody right now. So super impressed, and we'll see how it gets tested going forward.
Yeah, they looked just flat out awesome over the weekend. They run ruled every game, but kind of like what Alfred was saying, it takes a notch up this week. They're on the road at Stetson. They get Miami for a 3-game series. That's in Gainesville, and then their midweek after that is against UCF. So we'll get a much better feeling for Florida with the level of competition they're about to play here in the next few days.
Okay, we had a flip at number 3. Coming in at 3rd this week, LSU, which had a frustrating week. I think offensively did score 13 against Southern. 4-2 beat Nebraska-Omaha on Friday. Loses game 2, 5-4, and then comes back with a vengeance, 12-5. I think LSU's underachieved a little bit so far. I think the hitting's going to be better than the spin. I've talked a bunch about their pitching. I will still stand by that. I mean, I guess, gosh, they've got a 461 on base percentage. I don't know what their left on base numbers are, but it feels like they should be scoring more runs than they are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, tough weekend for them. You don't expect to lose a game at home to Nebraska-Omaha, but I think this is still a club that if it all comes together, is as good as anybody in the country.
Yeah,
it is. I caught the loss. Oh no, LSU fans. I didn't catch the good game for you guys, but that Trout home run for Omaha that he had kind of sucked the wind out of that team. I feel like not too much. I mean, they stormed back a little bit, but it put them in too deep of a hole to really kind of build themselves back enough. Because that home run came in the 7th inning. I mean, you don't have a lot of time after that, obviously, to work your way back into it, down 5 runs. They nearly did it, and it just wasn't meant to be. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those games that you just happen to lose. You're not going to win every game during the year, and it just happened to come during this series against Omaha. Eyeanson impressed me that game, 7 strikeouts in 6 innings. So that's one good thing to take away from it. But the offense just couldn't get going enough. And Omaha had, a big home run from Trout that put them ahead late. And it was just too big of a hole for them to come out of. So good. There's a reason LSU didn't drop that far, and they're still 3rd in this conference. So they're right where they need to be. And I'll be watching them to see how they bounce back this upcoming week.
Good news for LSU fans. Don't ask me why, but this is the 3rd year in a row, right around the same time, week 2, where they have dropped a midweek to an unranked non-conference opponent. So it's kind of been a trend that's been going on, and this year just happens to be Omaha. No reason to hit the panic button, though. LSU, they're too talented offensively and on the mound. So I'm got a feeling that they're going to be able to bounce back, in a big way moving forward here. So no need to drop them, in my opinion, out of the top 5.
Yeah, pitching's too good. All right, number 1. Did we have a change at number 1? We're about to find out. We did not. We kept A&M at number 1. Tennessee is number 2. Look, if we are power ranking teams based on body of work, and by the way, you figured it out by now, A&M would be number 1. If we were ranking based on body of work, A&M would not be number 1, and LSU would not be number 3. But that's not all there is to it. Anyway, had a pretty close vote for these final 2. Let's start with the Vols. Some stuff in the comments about Levi Clark, who's hit really well for them. Very highly rated freshman catcher, I think from maybe Vegas. They've been playing Jay Abernathy in center, who can fly, good defender. Obviously you know about the transfers. Liam Doyle has just been shoving on Fridays. Alfred, you got a chance to see a lot of the Vols this weekend. And by the way, Sam's saying wouldn't be surprised to see A.J. Russell this week. If you get A.J. Russell back and healthy, that completely changes the makeup of the staff. Because if there's a criticism of them right now, it's that their starting pitching is maybe not super deep. They're piecing it together more with bullpen arms. But Russell is a guy that can give you 5 or 6 if he's healthy. Sam pointed out Dylan Loy hasn't pitched yet. Loy was one of their – they had other guys they went to last year first, like Snead. But when he pitched, he was great. So there's a little bit left for Tennessee that we haven't seen yet. I'll be interested to see what the week brings us with their pitching staff. But, Alfred, talk about what you saw from the Vols this weekend in a sweep of Samford.
Well, I mean, Levi Clark's been their best hitter statistically. And by the way, Chris, Marietta, Georgia, not too far away. That's where he's from. He has launched a baseball this weekend. I saw that was incredible. Gavin Kylan also starting to do that a little bit. I keep seeing comparisons on X or Twitter to Drew Gilbert from Vol fans. That's a pretty good comparison. So we'll see. Maybe it's because he watches balls a little longer after they come off the bat. But who knows? If it ends up that way, that only helps Tennessee a bunch. The pitching thing is a fair point. I mean, you look at it, a guy who's made 2 starts for them already is Brandon Arvidsson, and he hasn't gone too deep. Marcus Phillips hasn't gone too deep in his starts either yet. It hasn't hurt them too much. I mean, they're undefeated, and they've kind of taken care of business. But that's just the things that stick out to me a little bit. And another freshman, Jay Abernathy, also hitting very, very well to start the year. I've been impressed with him a ton. No home runs yet, but I don't think he's going to be one of their guys they look to for a bunch of home runs. He's more of just, speedster, steal the bases kind of guy. And he's just been racking up base hits. So, I know that might not be the go-to mantra with Tennessee when it comes to just mashing the ball, but that helps get the job done and helps you get extra runs on the board when you bring your power hitters up. And looking at power hitting, I mean, they have, I'm going to go ahead and count them, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 guys with multiple home runs this year. That's Dalton Bargo, Gavin Keelan, Hunter Ensley, Reese Chapman, Dean Curley, and Levi Clark. Levi Clark already has 3. Just another note on him. So, great stuff from Tennessee. They easily have a case for number 1 in our power rankings, but we went the other way. I think you could go either way with it, but just impressed with them. And if what Sam's saying is true and they get AJ Russell back, I don't think it'd be Tuesday, but if they get him back for Houston this upcoming weekend when they play good teams like Oklahoma State and Arizona, that's just going to help them. And, he did really well in neutral sites last year. That was probably his best game was against Texas Tech at the beginning of last year in Arlington. So that's just going to help the Vols, and you can see great stuff from him. It'll help their pitching, and it really will help make them a case to be arguably the best team in the country.
Yeah. Offensively, they pass with flying colors. They lead the SEC. They got 20 home runs already. That leads the league. Their approach has been really good as well. They got the second most walks. They're only 1 behind Alabama in walks, and they don't strike out a lot. They're towards the bottom in strikeouts. So everything, when you look at the numbers, they're already eye-popping numbers as a team, especially offensively for Tennessee. To me, like the story, it's got to be Liam Doyle. I mean, 2 starts. Yeah. He's just been sensational. I mean, I knew he was good, but he just elevated his game to another level. And Chris has said it. I mean, if he keeps pitching like this, he'll be in the first round in that conversation for sure. Left-handed, upper 90s. I mean, he's been incredible in his first 2 starts. Want to see how they look, though. They're about to leave Knoxville for the first time. They're playing in that tournament in Houston. So it's a big jump in the level of competition coming up here this week for Tennessee.
Yeah, if you just go on eyeballs, Liam Doyle, probably your best pitcher in the league so far, just based on how efficient he's been, how many guys. I mean, it's hard to strike out. What did he do? 14 strikeouts on 80 pitches or something crazy like that a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it's like you start doing the math in your head, like, well, you can barely throw a ball if you're putting up those numbers. I think the four-seamer is playing really well, 98, 99. Frank Anderson is just a terrific pitching coach, and it's paid dividends for Liam Doyle so far to transfer. Levi Clark, again, we mentioned him earlier. I'm interested to see if he ends up crashing the lineup. I don't know where it'd be. I mean, you'd think maybe at catcher, but Cam Peebles is hitting well. So I don't know. I think Levi Clark is going to earn some at-bats somewhere. Mm-hmm. And again, watching the pitching this week, now I think that, boy, the series I can't wait to see is them in Florida in a couple weekends because, boy, that will be some arms on display, and I'll bet you that one will be chippy. But they've got, like you said, the out-of-town series this weekend at St. Bonaventure before we get to that point. Okay, number one, A&M. I did feel going into the season, I'm not going to say it was just like too good to be true because that lineup, but like first-year coach, it felt like it could only disappoint in a little bit of a way. And I don't think that's what A&M's going to do. I mean, when you got Grohovac and Laviolette and Sorrell and those guys, they're going to end up hitting.
Right.
They did this a couple years ago. 2022, they weren't great in non-conference, and then they get to the league play and just turn it on just like that. Now, I am a little more worried about their bullpen depth compared to some of the other it's in the league, but you got to give them some benefit of the doubt. And I think that's kind of what we did with the number one ranking. Everybody had them the number one team coming in the country. You know, I don't think you take a 3-2 loss to Cal Poly and just wipe that all off the map. But they've struggled. They struggled against Elon in the opener. Didn't score a lot this weekend. I have a feeling, guys, and we've seen them, it's been a little damp and cold there too. I'm not ready to hit the panic button on A&M yet, but those were 2 weekends that they probably didn't play up to the standard we had for them either, to be fair.
No, it wasn't. I caught most of the Saturday game as opposed to their loss on Sunday. The Cal Poly starter, his name was Volmerding, Josh Volmerding, shoved for a lot of that game against them. I mean, he was shutting them down. It took a Blake Binder up clutch RBI hit to get Texas A&M going. And once that happened, it was kind of just back and forth between the two teams. And just based off, lineups and strength of lineup, A&M's going to win a back and forth with Cal Poly, and that's what happened. Jamal George had an RBI double. Gavin Grohovic knocked in 2 runs himself to give the Aggies the lead and eventually the win. So it took kind of like a last-minute offense to really create that win. And I think that kind of factored into Sunday's game because then it was like, well, Cal Poly has this, mantra in their head going like, hey, we can stick with this team. Let's steal one before we head back out, on the road. And that's exactly what happened. And in that Sunday game, I mean, the hitting was kept to a minimum. A&M had some errors, thrown in the mix too. So that's what sticks out to me about that game that I didn't catch as much. But even just looking at the Saturday game, it took until the very end of the game for A&M to put something together. So I think that it just hasn't come. The hitting we've expected is going to come. It just hasn't come to the forefront yet.
Yeah.
To me, that's why everybody is. I mean, everybody's like, "What's going on with Texas A&M?" They just haven't passed the eye test yet. You look at teams like Tennessee and Florida who are just destroying everybody left and right. A&M, the schedule hasn't been that challenging so far. They just haven't been able to string together hits. And I do think it'll come. I definitely don't think we need to panic, but it is getting to a point where if you're an A&M fan, especially, like you want to see double-digit hits, double-digit runs in one of these games coming up here just to feel good. The pitching has been good. Like Prager been really good, 10 strikeouts, only walked 4, hasn't allowed a run yet. And then Miles Patton has also been good. He's got 16 strikeouts, only 1 walk. So the pitching, starting pitching, it's been there. But as Chris said, wants to see a little bit more from the bullpen. But I just think everybody in the country is just like, what is going on offensively? They just haven't really clicked yet or gelled yet offensively at the plate so far.
Well, I would clarify this a little bit, okay? And this is a little bit of a what are we talking about here? Because they should handle these teams. Elon and Cal Poly are better than Manhattan, Hofstra. Some of these teams, some other SEC teams have been playing. I mean, Cal Poly had a top 5 pick a couple years ago. Elon's got George Kirby in the bigs. Elon's been in regionals. Those are more competitive teams. Teams that A&M should handle, but there's a little bit of a difference in opponents. Are they still probably underachieving? Yeah, they are. A&M's better than this. I am worried looking at stat sheet about their pitching. That was my concern going in this year. I thought that was being underplayed a little bit. I just didn't see their bullpen, maybe past 5 or 6 arms being as good as some of the other ones in the league. I think so far that's played out. Now, I'll give you this. Prager and Miles Patton are probably – I don't know that I'd take a 1-2 punch that anybody else has got ahead of those guys, especially what we saw from both of them a year ago, and that can cover over a lot of sins elsewhere. But, I mean, look, I think for now you got to give them some benefit of the doubt. We're not going to overreact based on a lot of lopsided series wins after a weekend. We moved the teams that moved the furthest were the ones that had the best weekends and it's quality teams. Right. That's Alabama and Oklahoma. We're not moving them up to top 5 yet because that's just kind of silly. That's not how baseball works. So in any case, we're getting a little blowback on the Sooners. Look, here's the thing with the Sooners, okay, guys? We look at everybody's lineup. Oklahoma had 4 or 5 JUCO kids. You just don't know how that's going to work out till you see it play out.
Mm-hmm.
When the pitching also was a little bit more pro-hype and polished. And again, I'm not trying to dog Oklahoma, but these guys weren't putting up Ryan Prager, Miles Patton numbers last year. Now, Kyson Witherspoon's going to be a first-rounder. His coach thinks his brother is too. And they might be, but there's a lot of ball to be played. I mean,
remember, Malachi, a new role. Like, I don't care who you are. If you go from being the closer to a starter, that's an adjustment. It just is.
Yeah. Well, but baseball's like, how many teams have we seen in this league that like we didn't know, like Mississippi State last year? We didn't know Mississippi State was that good till we got to the halfway point of the season. Been a lot of teams like that. Just you don't overreact. I've seen SEC baseball for 20 seasons now. You don't overreact to everything really early, unless it just screams at you. Okay, here's something. You start losing frontline pitchers, stuff like that. Yeah. Then you start making adjustments. I've seen enough ball that I just don't start moving teams up a half dozen spots this early in the year based on one weekend.
Chris Lee, you should have fixed it right before, and you should have put Oklahoma and Alabama 1 and 2, and you know it. You know it, don't you?
Okay, people on me for look, I'm just saying Elon and Cal Poly, they're not SEC teams, but they are better than what most teams are facing most weekends.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to Saturday in inning 3 and these teams are already run out of pitching, it's batting practice. Right. And I'm sorry, I don't interpret that as a meaningful data point to separate elite teams. I just don't. If you want to, it's a free country, but I don't. So
we're not the only ones to do it either. I mean, D1 baseball last week, Virginia, had a big loss to Michigan to start the year. They stayed right at number 2 in the country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not the only ones that do this. So I'll just say that too as a reference point.
And the poll came out today. I think 11 teams are in the top 25. Like Ole Miss, there's too many polls, first of all, but Ole Miss is now ranked in the top 25. So you got more.
It's free country. If you want to overreact, you can. I'm just not going to go there. Any parting thoughts? Again, if you missed it earlier, 15 of the league's 16 teams have got 1 loss or 0 losses. So everybody's got a gripe somewhere. Everybody's fan base is going to feel like, my team's unbeaten. Why didn't you move them up? Well, there's 5 other teams with you.
Right.
not everybody can move up. That's just kind of how it works.
Parting thought from me, I'm trying to think. Looking forward to more baseball. That's about it. Maybe we get some more separation as these teams start to play people. Again, it's February, so it's kind of like whatever, to be honest with you at this point. Everyone's still getting a feel for everybody.
Yeah.
My parting thoughts, winners of the weekend, in no order, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Alabama. They got to be feeling really good after their performance and where they are heading into week 3.
I would put Alabama ahead of Arkansas. Alabama went unbeaten on the weekend. And then the Gage Wood thing, I'd give to me, the Wood situation is more concerning than losing a 2-1 game to Kansas State.
Right. I'm with you on that. Same thing, same sentiment.
Yeah, hopefully he's okay. All right, gentlemen, let's get out of here. We've got, I guess we'll do baseball live stream 10:30ish tomorrow. So come in for that. I think we're doing live streams in the 10 to 10:30 range Monday to Thursday. We're probably going to start doing some weekend reaction stuff after the fact. Hadn't gotten the schedule down yet. Also going to have a new voice join us a little bit here too, to give us all a little break. So looking forward to that. For Alfred Ezman and Graham Doty, I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching SEC Power Rankings and Week 2 Reaction. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.